Right, so we will be doing Windows programming for this term. Okay, if you look at the work schedule. Right, introduction to Windows, and the second slide. There's a slide also on the iDrive, right? That has introduction to Windows programming, just a step-by-step introduction. So we'll work through that. Okay. So we're looking at objects. Okay, and what understanding object. What is an object? Basically, an object is anything. Now, when we talk about Windows programming, you're familiar with Windows programming, okay? Because you've been working in Windows, and if you haven't been working in Windows, you've been working in Ubuntu, right? So all of those, they are Windows components, okay? And any object or any item on your window or on your form, whatever is termed or is known as an object, okay? Okay, like a button, a text box, a radio button. Those are all objects, okay? So you need to understand what is an object, okay? Because an object has certain behavior and it has certain characteristics, okay? Properties are basically your characteristics of your object, okay? Like an object can be a color object, or color characteristic of it can be blue, it can be black, right? The size, size property, what else? Any text, whatever text goes onto that property, if it's a button, okay? That is the properties. The methods of an object is the way the object would behave, right? Which the functionality, okay? Now, if you've done databases, or rather, in databases, DB2, you've done classes, right? You haven't done, but in other languages like C++, right? You've done classes, okay? Now, a class, right, is basically your method or your means of creating objects, right? And an object is basically that contains properties and methods, okay? Like your data items, right? And your functions, right? So properties are the same as your data items. Methods are the same as your functionality, okay, of the object. Collection is basically a group of objects that are related. Okay, we'll speak about collection more. Then event-driven programming. Event-driven programming basically means that for any event or for any action on your screen, an event is triggered. Right, and once you know that particular event, you can actually program by programming on that event. For instance, an event like clicking a button, right? That is an event, and something can happen there. An event like dragging your mouse over a button or any object, right? That is an event, right? And I'll show you in the demo. Okay, right? So that is what we need to look at. Then there's a whole list of things under building user interface. Okay, because that is basically where the emphasis will be in mostly. Okay. Right, so we're looking at changing and naming your appearance of the form, okay, and that is also dealing with changing, working with controls, right? Your controls changing and changing the name and the appearance of your controls, even, right? Showing and hiding forms, okay, you can show a form and hide a form, okay. That is when we work with multiple forms, okay, because you get one form, you can show that form and unshow it, okay. Or you can hide it, or you can even close it, and all those things. Creating topmost windows, right? Creating transparent forms, creating scrollable forms, okay? Sometimes your form has got more detail on it than you can see, so you want to have it scrollable. Creating MDI forms, okay? So you would have forms that you can, okay, we'll talk about that. Setting the startup object, okay. When you have a application running, you can bring up a window that like a splash screen, okay, like a welcome screen, okay, and you can actually set up your starting objects, okay. Working with traditional controls like a text box, button, option button, drop down list box, combo box. These are all your traditional controls or common controls that we look at. And then there are other advanced controls like a timer, dialog box, storing pictures and images, hierarchical list, adding menus and toolbars to forms. Alright. So that is basically that what we will do for this term. Okay. Next term we'll go further when it comes to your Windows programming. Okay. So the other slide that I want you to look at also is there's a slide called development software, or it's called DS2 Term 3 Week 1 Introduction to Programming. So that is just a slide. You can work through that, right? You can look at you can work through that to create a form application, right? All the steps to do that. Okay. So I'm actually going to go through that with you, and we will. You can follow me, or right. So we will again still working in Visual Studio 2010, right? What we've done is we've worked with console application, right? On the console application. So go to File, New, Project. Right. So under your Visual C++, you see there's a lot of objects over there, or a lot of categories. Okay. Okay. What we've selected for your console application is the Win32 category. Okay. And you've basically done most of your programs in there, right? Okay. So we will do Windows Forms application, right? Right. And what I'll show you during next week also is actually how to deploy your application, right? And that you will find under other applications, other project types, that is setup and deployment. Okay, and we can have a look at setup and deployment. Okay, that's finally or producing your final output. Like, okay, right. So for Windows programming, we will select CRR. Okay, and under CRR you get your various options. Okay. And one of those options is Windows Forms application, right? So that's what you select, right? And then you type in your name, right? So okay, so let's put in a name. Let's say, okay, let's call the student marks. Okay. Alright, so again we're going to have student marks, student number, student name, and then 5 marks for that student. That's what it will capture, right? Okay, so once you've done that, it comes up with your blank form. Okay, and the title, the name of that form is Form 1. Okay, it's always Form 1. Okay, over here you have your toolbox. Okay, where you've got all your controls. Okay, which is also categorized into common controls, containers, menus, and toolbars, data, components, printing dialogues. Alright, so these are categories, but we will work with common controls, and under your common controls you have like your buttons, your text boxes, your labels, right? And also under menus is when you want to create a menu, right? Okay, like a pull down menu, and there are others. Okay, so but let's look at putting up labels. Okay, before we do that, on your right hand side here of your screen, you get your what you call your Solution Explorer. Now I think you're familiar with the Solution Explorer. Okay, right. So if you click there, header file, that header file used to contain whatever header files you added. Okay, but now it contains the form.h. Right. Now your form.h is a physical header file, right, which is located somewhere. The representation of the population of it, that's just the graphical representation of the actual what we call generated code. Okay, we'll look at the generated code afterwards. Then you've got under your source file, you have student marks.cpp. That is your main file. Okay, that's the same as the name of your project. Okay, if you double click on there, this is the code that contains that file, right? And you'll see that application : run, that basically initializes or brings up the form, right, which we have created. Okay, and you've got to include there form.1h, because in form.1h, that is where all the other applications, other generated code lies. Okay, and we'll look at that as well. Okay, so let's go back to the design, and we want to put up some labels. First of all, a label, right, and a text box. Okay, let's put up another label and another text box, and we can put up 3 more text boxes. One. Okay, now you either drag it from there. If you have a text box already, you press Control and drag, and that will duplicate that for you. Okay, Control and drag, and that will duplicate that for you as well. Okay. So over here we get 3 buttons. So what I'll put up 1 text box for the student number, 1 for the student name, and 3 for marks. Okay, test marks. Okay, 3 test marks. Okay. Right. What you can also do when you want to populate a control, you can double click on that, and that will basically put it where, not where you want it, but it will put it on the screen. Okay. So we need our label there, and a label there, and a label there. Okay. If you click and drag like the rectangle around the labels or controls, it will actually select all those controls that you have highlighted. Okay, so you can now align it. Okay, there's alignment. You'll see that your alignment toolbar comes up. So we want to align that. All right, that looks like it's already aligned. Okay. Okay. Right, now what about changing the properties of the controls that you've placed up? Okay. Right, so on the right hand side you'll see that there's a property tab. Okay, if you bring up that property tab, it has various properties. Okay, so the main properties that you want to change is the name of the item, and also the text. Okay, if any text needs to be on. Am I moving too fast? Okay. Right, I'll click on that label, and then over there I've got my properties on the right hand side. If it's not on your right hand side, it might be on your left hand side. Depends on. It's not necessary. It could be somewhere else. Okay, now go there. That one. You see the middle one? That one. That is your properties. There is your properties. Okay, yeah, you can just scroll down. You can drag it, just drag it. Just, yeah, okay. So there you see it. Is that the property? Right, but you see that your properties is your label item. Alright, there it comes. Are you all there with the properties? Yes, yes. Okay. Alright, so we change the properties, and you can, okay, normally for labels we will prefix it and call it LBL, okay, for labels. LBL start num, and the text, it's the student. Okay, I'll just call it student hash. Okay. Alright, for your second label, call that LBL name. Alright. Okay, the name of any control is relevant when it comes to coding. Okay, and you want to use that label, right? Then it becomes relevant. Okay, but not now, because you can't see the label name, right? You can only see the text name, the text of that label. Name. Then over here we'll say test. Okay, I'm not going to change the labels or the names for the 3 labels. Okay, just change the text. That's test 1. Test 2 and test 3. Okay. So now you've changed the label. So the labels for the text boxes also, or the name rather of the text box, can be changed. Okay. And your text box would start with the prefix txt. Okay. txt. txt num. So it's txt num for your text, of your student number. txt name, your student name. txt T1, just call it T1, txt T1, txt T2, and txt T3. Okay. Right. Just note that your labels, your name of your controls doesn't contain special characters and space. All right, that will produce an error. Right? So no special characters and spaces. Underscores can work because it's like a variable, declaring any identifier. Okay. Okay, can I continue? Next thing that you want to put up is a button, just a close button, alright, because we want to close the form after we finish. Okay, so we put up a button, and that button is over there. Let's just put it in the corner there. Right, we can do other things to this label, to this form. Okay, you can create the average, alright, or you can create the average test mark. Okay, or you can even create or put up a pass mark or fail mark. Okay. So properties for the button. Right, again the name for your button is the prefix there is btn. Call that btn close. The name text of that is close. Okay. Now if you put if you put an ampersand in front of that, what will it do? Go underline the character on the left hand side, on the right hand side of it. Okay. Right, so close C is, and what happens if you do that? What's the combination key that you use? Right? Control C. Right, so we've done now, we've finished now, okay? For now, okay? Before we do any coding, let's go and actually compile the program. Okay. All right. Same way that you would do for any other program. Okay. Either Control F5, all right, or just F5, F7 for compile, right? F5 for running it or for building. So F5, yes. Okay, so they came up with the menu. Oops, sorry. Right, so there it comes up with your okay. Right, so there's no action being taken on any of these events, okay, or any of these controls, okay. So we can close that again. Right, so when you double click on any control, and even on the form itself, right, it will then take you to the code or the generated code or the it will take you to the code area, right, or the text editor, okay, code editor, okay. Right, I'll double click on the button, on the close button, and it brings up this line, or there's something else next to that. If you go to the beginning of the line, right, it starts with private system void, right, and then btn close, which is the name of your function, and then also some parameters for that function, right. These parameters will make sense later on, okay. Right, what you need to know now is you have to put your cursor inside of the curly brackets, okay. Right, please don't make the mistake. Sometimes students, they either not put their coding with inside the curly brackets, or they make their own curly brackets, all right, and that would later on create some errors, right. So once you double click, let's just go back there. Once you double click on that control, right, it normally takes you to the end, or to the next to the first curly bracket of that function, right. You press enter, right. So because normally your curly bracket is over here, right. Normally your curly bracket is over here. So what other students would do, they would put up a curly bracket there because they don't see the curly bracket, right. So if you want to see the curly bracket, then press enter over there, and then that's where you see your curly bracket. Okay. Alright, now for the close, the simplest way of closing a form is to say CLS, close, open bracket, close bracket, because that's a function, right? The other variance for closing is application : exit, open bracket, close bracket, okay? Right, so the difference between the two, the difference between the close and the application exit is that your close closes a form, okay? Now, because we only have one form, we might as well just use close, okay? But your application exit closes other forms if there's other forms open, okay? So any point where you call the function, where you execute the statement application : exit, it will close all other forms if those other forms are open, right? So the best place to put it is actually at the main form, okay? If other forms are not open, right? Or if you want to exit it and you pick up an error, there's an error, you just want to terminate the program, that's why you will close the application. Alright, so save that, test and compile it again. Right. So here you can type in detail, serial number, serial name. Okay. Right, you'll see that the tabs, okay, I'll show you the tab order is not, it's not in order, okay, and I'll show you how to change that tab order, okay. So it's for 54. Okay. Right. So I mean, at this stage, you actually don't do anything with the data. Okay. So that's all it does. Okay. So we click close. It closes the application. That's it. Right. Let's go back to your tab order. Okay. I think that you'll find if you go to edit. Right there, okay. You see this button over there with that console over there? That is your your order tab order control, tab order button. Okay. Right at the end of your alignment toolbar. Okay. That is where you find your tab order. You click on that. Right, it basically gives you the order in which you tab. Okay, so you can now click on each of them in the order that you want them. Okay, so if you want to have that is 1, it will be 0 because it's indexed. That is number 2, that is number 3, that is number 4, and that will be number 5, and that will be number 6. Right. So the other labels are irrelevant. Okay, because you're not selecting the label. And that would be your order. Okay. Right, so the next time you run it, right, so next time, now you press tab, 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 okay? Goes back, tab, tab, okay, so that's something nice to have if you want to really... Hey? Okay, now you have to select all of them, right? You select all of them, and then you click on the right hand side, on your right hand side, the icon, the furthest icon, on the right, on that, this is your Linemen Toolbar, okay? So you click on that one, then it actually gives you the numbers of each of the controls, okay? Right, so if you want to change the order, you click on the order in which you want the tabs to appear. Okay? So that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Right, so the order will start, first, when your program opens, it will first highlight close, and then it will tab, tab, tab in that order. Okay, but really you don't want to do that one. Okay, now it changes. Okay, so I think you click until you actually get to the 0th number. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and we can do something else. Okay.